Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and welcome to another segment of Razor Sharp Sports. I'm Razor Ramon and I'm here with Mesa native Trini Ochoa. Trini, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. I know it's we're getting close to the Tank Davis fight, so it's getting a little close to that time. But thank you so much for sitting down and answering a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch those fights too, but I'm excited for this interview as well. Thanks for having me. And
well, it's been long awaited. I know I've interviewed you before back in 2018 when you had your first fight, and that was on that was in Phoenix, and that was a huge fight. You were probably one of my first interviews, and that's how I got my feet wet. So now, pushing forward to 2023, it's a new year, and recently you fought in Glendale, Arizona on the Del Sol card against a tough opponent. He was a veteran of 37 fights. But obviously you put in the work, you got the job done by TKO in the first round. How does it feel now? You're 14-0 with 7 KOs, and now you've upped the level in each and every single one of your fights. So how did you feel after that fight, and how do you feel about continuing your undefeated record?
After that fight, I felt good. Ended short. I had a few more things I wanted to try out. I had a game plan going in there, and the first option I tried, worked. So I'll take that. It was a good experience still. And from here on out, I just want to keep stepping up my opponents, keep fighting tougher guys, and yeah, keep it going.
And you have upped up the opponents each. I believe the last 2 fights you fought veterans that had an extensive amount of fights, and now you're fighting 8 rounders. So that's you've been on that level already, and so I know we talked before. You're gonna continue fighting the 8 rounders. You just want to get that extra work in, and so that's awesome. You had about 50 amateur fights in your career. What made you get into the sport, and why? I know we talked earlier before. Even the beginning of your career, you were with the Benavides camp when they were here, and you were getting work with them. Your dad also was learning some pointers with them too. So how did you get into the sport of boxing?
I mean, ever since I was little, we always watched it. We had family get-togethers, watching like Pacquiao, Marquez and stuff. Being a little kid, just sitting on the floor with all my cousins and watching those fights, having a great time. That was always fun. But growing up, I fell off a little bit. I didn't watch it as much until I was around like 12, 13-ish. And I was going to junior high, and for some reason, I just wanted to fight, It was always in me, my family's fighters, not boxers, but fighters.
Right.
I wanted to fight, so I got in a couple fights in junior high, just
like street
just
ones.
on the streets, just on the street. And then I was a quiet kid. I always kept to myself, really. And after those fights, I would call my dad super excited, super like, Dad, I just did this. And then he noticed that, I was quiet. I never showed that passion for anything.
Right.
So when he noticed that I was showing that passion for fighting, he took me to the boxing gym and taught me how to do it right.
Right, and then it's different fighting on the street than it is fighting on the ring. In the ring, it's a little bit more technical, and it's not so much wailing. I feel like people think in boxing you just wail, but it's super technical. You're super technical. I've seen you fight before many times. I've seen you train before. We trained at the same gym at one point at the Broadway boxing gym, and that gym was like super cool because we're all so tight knit, and watching you train and stuff like that. And now you're super technical. I know the street is completely different, but that's awesome that you decided to switch it up and go inside the ring.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started boxing, I was not technical at all. I was flat-footed fighter,
Yeah,
going forward,
same way.
throwing bombs, same way. But my dad, he don't want me to get hit. He wants me to be a
Right.
smart fighter, so he taught me that way.
That's the whole trick about the sport is to hit but not get hit.
Yep, exactly.
And when you put on the gloves, you're just like, man, I just want to wail on
Yeah.
something. But you start to learn. Everybody that gets into the sport, you start to learn. You go in with that mentality, you're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
So you just want to learn, be more technical.
Yep.
Other than boxing, though, I know you're huge on art. You're an awesome artist. I know your dad. He's a tattoo artist at Sacred Society Tattoo, and what made you find that passion outside the ring for art?
Just growing up, I was always around it, always drawing. I just loved it. I always think of boxing as an art itself. It's a way to express certain emotions. And I think art is on the other side of that spectrum, where there's emotions I can't express through boxing, through punching somebody, and I could express those emotions through my art.
When you usually like write up, because I've seen you like draw on other videos previous on YouTube. Do you ever like think about becoming a tattoo artist also too, or is that just kind of just something that's like leisure? Something you like to do for fun.
I like to keep it as a hobby, and I've actually done some tattoos on some of my friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've dabbled in it, but every time I get into it, I have a fight. Another fight comes up, and so I go right back to training camp, and it's done that a few times to the point where I'm like, I have to pick what I want to focus on, and I want to focus on boxing, and so I'm sticking to that.
Stick to boxing right now, then maybe after.
After that option's always there. So.
I've seen your artwork, man. I've seen you draw a koi fish before, and man, your art is super awesome. I'm too scared to get a tattoo. I feel like I'd move or something like that.
I don't have any yet.
I don't either, but I've always told my tia Barb, if I get one, I'd go get one with her. But I've always thought about your guy, the tattoo shop you guys go to. So whenever I decide to get one, I'll come to you guys. I'll come to you guys. Each fight, we've talked about this before, and each fight I've gone, you bring a huge crowd. You sell out tickets like if it's a huge mega fight. And how does it feel when you have such an enormous crowd that's there, and they're yelling Trini, 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 and I've seen it happen. They have the shirts that say TO on them, and you can't miss it. They're just huge shirts that say TO. So how does that feel, having a huge crowd come out there to support you each and every single fight?
It's the best feeling in the world. I remember ever since my first fight, when I first walked out that tunnel, and I didn't even hear the music I picked on. I just heard the crowd just yelling, the roar of the crowd. It was probably one of the most memorable moments of my life, and it's something I'll always hold on to. And I thank my fans and my family and friends and everybody who comes out to support me every fight, and I truly mean it when I do thank them, because they just give me so much more than I could ever ask for.
And that crowd has been there since the beginning too, even at your amateur fights. We were talking before. Your dad was saying you guys had that crowd since amateur level, and you've brought that crowd since the beginning. So from them coming to your amateur fights and then now coming to your pros, that's huge. That's a lot of support, and I think that's huge, especially to the next question I'm getting to. Each fight you have Mesa just blasted on the front of your trunks or on the back of your trunks. And you're one of the handful of fighters that I know that fight out of the 480. So how does it feel representing the city of Mesa? How important is it to you creating a legacy and being one of the handful of boxers, professional boxers that fight out of Mesa, Arizona?
Well, it's an honor. Mesa's always treated me great. My dad grew up here, and me just being here as well, growing up here. They always treat me with so much, kindness. I'll be out in random street. Somebody who just knows of me or whatever will help me out, or just say hi, what's up, show me love.
Yeah.
And that's the best feeling. And even before boxing, it was like that.
Yeah.
Just because my dad, tattoo artist, he knows a lot of people, and they always treated us with such kindness. So I just always want to, give back, give them a little something
show love
show
back.
love. Yeah.
And I feel like that's different. When you think of fighters that represent their cities, you've had, there's a lot of the fighters, professional fighters here, fight out of Glendale and Phoenix. The big cities. But here in Mesa, it's very like suburb, tight
Yeah.
knit. So when you get a handful of fighters that are fighting out of here, for me, that's special. You're one of those few that represent it, and you definitely, when you're in the ring, man, you show a lot of pride to it, and the fact that you wear the trunks and you have that on there, to me, that's awesome. Knowing somebody that fights out of this city, because when you think of Mesa, no one really thinks of boxing, but people in the boxing community know who you are, and that's awesome.
Yep.
So I feel like that's awesome that you get to represent the city each and every single fight, dude. And with the crowd that you bring, everybody knows that you fight out of Mesa.
Yep.
So that's awesome. In this sport, a lot of opportunities come, and one big opportunity that you had that you obviously earned. You had the opportunity to fight with WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO, and the Ring Magazine champion, Devin Haney. And this was what's crazy enough. This was the fight before the rematch when he fought George Kambosos Jr. Um, how did that go? You went 8 straight rounds with that guy. So how did that sparring go? I know you can't really say much about it, but how awesome was that to get the opportunity to spar with him, especially in that huge rematch fight that he had?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. That's why we take those trips to Vegas to get that sparring, because we want opportunities like that, opportunities to learn more, get better. We spar everybody we can over here in Arizona, but that's only so much. We can do so much more by sparring other people, learn a lot more, and getting the opportunity with Devin Haney was awesome. We're only supposed to go 4 rounds because there's supposed to be 2 sparring partners. I go 4, another person goes 4. Other person didn't show, so we said we'll take all 8 then.
Right.
Because I just wanted to learn as much as I can and get in that ring. He's fast. He's obviously the world champion for a reason.
Yeah.
And I just took everything I can there.
You weren't even in camp at that time, dude. Your dad was saying that you were not out of shape, but obviously you weren't in camp. You weren't in camp shape, and that's different. Being in shape but being in camp shape is completely different than the sport. But the fact that you went 8 rounds with him and you got that work and you went full on non-stopping, that's crazy. So that's awesome that you got the opportunity to learn from him, and I'm sure he probably learned some things from you too, because you have some power behind you in each and one of those punches that you throw.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. Just to see the environment and everything too of his camp and how they do everything,
how they run things. And
it was a lot different, that's for sure.
How was it like sparring in that Top Rank gym? I know I've been there once, and it's like any other gym. You never know who walks into that gym. Yeah. Anybody can walk into that gym.
I've actually sparred in that gym a few other times, but sparring Devin Haney there, it was like being at a completely different gym, because they took over pretty much. They took over the gym. They set up their own environment. We had practically a referee in there.
Really?
Doing things too, and so it was a cool experience.
Oh, dude, that's so awesome! I remember when I stepped into that gym. It's just crazy because you see all these big name fighters, and then me being a fan, obviously, and seeing that, I get kind of starstruck. But watching all that, and it, like you said before, and the last questions that we've asked, it's like an art. Everybody trains the way they train, and it's like watching like 2 artists putting their work together, and it's crazy. People that are super soaked into the sport, that's something that they understand, and that's awesome that you got to experience that, see what how he fights, how his team works, and just continuing your career, and it's only going to go higher from here. Like I said before, we trained at the old gym at a Broadway boxing gym, and but now you have your garage gym. It's inside your guys' house. It's a nice little setup. Your dad's your trainer. He's your coach too. So how has that been? Training here, you literally just have to get up, put some clothes on, and train in here. So how does that go?
It's a nice feeling. You know, in the mornings, you know, I wake up and when it's time to train, I just, you know, I drink my coffee. You know, come out here and get to it. It's very convenient, that's for sure. I feel
Yeah.
spoiled sometimes, but it just helps me stay focused too, stay on track.
And you have the canal just right outside too.
Yeah, yeah,
I've seen you guys run up the canal up over by the orange tree groves and
yep.
stuff like
That's where we
that.
run.
That's you guys have a great setup for outside running, indoor running, all that stuff.
Hmm.
So this is a nice setup. Um, it's obviously a new year, 2023. I know we're just barely getting our feet wet into this new year, but what's next for you? I know you want to keep building up those eight rounder fights, and I know you're going to be doing great in those fights. But what's next?
I just want to find some tough opponents to get more experience with. You know, everybody wants to end their fights quick, but I like it when my fights go long rounds because I have so much fun in those fights, in those tough fights, and I learn so much. The longer the fight goes, the more I learn.
Right.
So I just want to find tougher opponents, get better, and improve my craft, and you know, hopefully get a belt one of these days.
I mean, I see it happening. I definitely see it happening. You know, I've seen almost all your fights, and most of the time, when you don't really look for the knockout, but if it's there, you're gonna take it.
Yeah.
That's a thing. If it's there, you're gonna take it.
Hmm.
But most of the fights that I've seen, you've gone the distance, but you've tried out new things, whether it's jab, working on the jab or
Yeah.
working on the check, things like that. You definitely get your experience in each fight, and even when it goes the distance, you just work on your boxing skills, and
Yeah.
it's just awesome watching you from the first fight all the way till now. It's just been truly a blessing being able to watch you and see you put in that work. So this year, I can only see things getting even bigger for you. So that's awesome.
Yep. Thank you.
Any last things you want to say? Any sponsors you have? Any shout outs you want to do of your social media, things like that? People can follow you on for the next fight, this next coming year.
Uh, yeah. First, I want to thank my dad. You know, he helps with everything. He's the man in the background. You know, taking care of all the ticket sales, promotion, everything. He does that all pretty much by himself. So appreciate that. All my sponsors, and my social media, Trini 8A. That's my Instagram. Trini Tattoo. That's my dad. He posts more than I do, so I need to get on that. But give him a follow too. Uh, and yeah, thank you.
No, that's awesome. Guys, you definitely don't want to miss out. Trini Ochoa, he's fighting out of Mesa, Arizona. So if you're a Mesa native, you definitely want to keep your eyes on him. We hope to see you on the next episode of Razor Sharp Sports. I'm Razor Ramon on Razor Sharp Sports, and that was Razor Sharp.